Thanks to Supremacy Call of War 1942 for sponsoring this video. It's a free-to-play PC and mobile player versus player military themed strategy game where you can choose a real country to lead during the Second World War. Play against up to 99 other players in real time over weeks as you control your nation in historic World War II global warfare. Control your nation's economy and build your army from different units including tanks, fighter planes and secret technology like nuclear weapons. Playing in real time allows for a deep level of strategic planning. Declare war on your neighbours or forge alliances with other players, and choose your strategy as you engage in epic battles to take over the world. To check it out, use the QR code on screen now or click the link in the video description below. New players who sign up with my link will get an exclusive starter pack containing new loot boxes which can drop the new unit, the Marines, with a value of $25 US. This offer is only valid for the next 30 days. Convoy JW51B slips out of Lock U on the evening of the 21st of December 1942. Composed of 15 merchant ships, the convoy is packed with much needed aid for the Red Army as it battles on around Stalingrad. 2,000 vehicles, mainly American-built trucks, 202 tanks, 87 fighter aircraft, 33 bombers, 24,000 tons of fuel, and 54,000 tons of general cargo. The close escort is provided by 2 corvettes and a pair of anti-submarine trawlers. Shepherding them until Iceland is a force of Hunt-class destroyer escorts. The Royal Navy's 14th Destroyer Flotilla, consisting of 1 A-class and 5 O-class fleet destroyers, under Captain Robert Sherbrooke, sails from eastern Iceland on Christmas Eve to take over escort duties as the convoy crosses the Arctic Circle. The force is now in the teeth of German defences. Some of the merchant skippers fear a repeat of PQ-17 earlier that summer, where the convoy was ordered to scatter to avoid a feared German surface attack, and isolated merchants were picked off one by U-boats. This time, Captain Sherbrooke has only one task: defend the convoy or die trying. Across the Norwegian Sea, sheltered in the Alta-fjord, Vice Admiral Oscar Kummetz of the Kriegsmarine prepares to strike. The Führer is keen for the German surface fleet to inflict a defeat on the Arctic convoys, and orders the creation of an audacious plan, Operation Regenbogen, or Rainbow. Battleship Tirpitz is laid up for maintenance, so the task falls to Kummetz's flagship, the heavy cruiser Admiral Hipper, and the pocket battleship Lutzow. All the Kriegsmarine needs is for a British convoy to wander into the trap. By the 27th of December, all the pieces are in play. A British covering force, light cruisers HMS Sheffield and HMS Jamaica, designated Force R, are sailing west from Murmansk to support the convoy. The convoy itself is 150 miles east of Jan Mayen Island, zigzagging its way east-northeast at 8 knots. Unbeknownst to the British, they have been spotted. A Focke-Wulf 200 patrol bomber flying from Bodø in Norway reports the convoy's position to Vice Admiral Kummetz. Due to the Arctic ice cap, the entrance to the Barents Sea is narrow, only 225 miles wide. Even though the growing darkness precludes further aerial reconnaissance, the Kriegsmarine has a good idea of where the convoy will be. By the 28th, the convoy has travelled 140 miles northeast. Cruisers Sheffield and Jamaica are at their patrol area shadowing the convoy. Force R keeps approximately 50 miles abreast of the merchants, close enough to respond to surface threats, but far enough to avoid attracting undue attention. Cruisers are valuable assets, and the Admiralty remains troubled by the loss of HMS Edinburgh earlier in the year, partly caused by her being stationed needlessly close to her convoy, presenting an easy target for submarine U-456. A Force 8 gale batters the convoy through the night of the 28th, so the destroyers spend most of the next day rounding up stragglers blown out of position in the storm. Little do they know that U-354 has been shadowing them since 9:40 am. The Type 7 U-boat makes its sighting report. In minutes, it's received aboard Kummetz's flagship, Admiral Hipper. The German commander briefs his subordinates while they wait for the Führer's personal approval. Nevertheless, he warns his battle group to be ready to sail at 3 hours' notice. As the surface force prepares to sortie, U-354 attacks. She launches 3 torpedoes from long range. As standard practice, The convoy has been sailing in a long zigzag pattern to throw off the aim of any submarine, and by chance, just as the German sub launches, the merchants reach a turn, slipping out of the line of fire, and all 3 torpedoes sail past harmlessly. The turn puts U-354 out of position for any further attacks. Just before 5 PM, Hitler gives the personal authorization for Operation Rainbow, prompting a frenzy of activity on the warships scattered across the field. The Führer's orders are deeply cautious. They warn Kummetz to avoid engaging a superior enemy, but then urge him to exercise restraint even when enemy is equally matched. Kummetz has no idea of which Royal Navy warships may be lurking nearby unspotted, so in effect, he is to launch a daring and audacious gamble, but simultaneously cannot tolerate any risk to his capital ships. Heavy cruiser Admiral Hipper leads, and Lutzow follows. Formerly called Deutschland, but renamed to avoid embarrassment if she was sunk, Lutzow is what the Germans call a Panzerschiff, an armoured ship, similar in size to Hipper. But due to her 11-inch main batteries, the same as the battleships Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, the British refer to her as a pocket battleship. Escorting the heavy ships are 6 destroyers, 2 Type 1934A class destroyers, Friedrich Eckold and Theodor Riedel, and the older Richard Beitzen, as well as the heavy Type 1936A or Narvik class destroyers, Z29, Z30 and Z31. Similar to Lutzow, the Narviks are disproportionately well armed, packing 5.9-inch main guns, very large for destroyers. This gives them similar firepower to light cruisers. Altogether, the Kriegsmarine has fielded a formidable striking force. The dark shapes of the German capital ships will emerge from the Norwegian coast as night falls. Destroyers trail in their wake as they turn north, powering through the swell at 24 knots. U-354 is forced to break off after narrowly escaping destroyer HMS Obdurate, but she makes one last sighting report. Kummetz receives the signal. The convoy is exactly where he wants it. The German force makes steady progress on the 31st of December. Approaching the suspected location of the convoy, Kummetz splits his force into 2 pincers. Hipper and 3 destroyers steam ahead, while Lutzow and her 3 escorts break off to the east. His plan is simple. Hipper, the faster of the 2 heavy ships, will threaten the convoy from the north to draw off the escorts. Then, the heavier Lutzow will destroy the now defenceless convoy from the south. Kummetz keeps the search radars of his ships switched off to avoid detection. At 6 AM, Hipper Group's destroyers, Friedrich Eckold, Richard Beitzen and Z29, are ordered to dogleg southeast to scout ahead. Peering through the murk at 7:18 AM, lookouts aboard Hipper spot 2 dark shapes on the horizon. Half an hour later, another shape looms from the fog. Kummetz decides that this must be his target. He orders Hipper to close to confirm, and the rest of the convoy comes into view. At 8 AM, the Lutzow group also reports sighting the convoy and is in position. This far north, magnetic interference renders compasses unreliable. With no visible horizon and thick clouds obscuring the stars, navigating officers are forced to rely on simple dead reckoning, using a timer and rough speed distance time calculations to attempt to keep track of their rough position. That Kummetz and his captains have placed both surface groups in perfect position is nothing short of superb seamanship. Still, the German admiral holds off, waiting for the polar dawn to provide just a little more light for his gunners. Unaware of the threat, the convoy proceeds at a stately 8 knots. 2 merchantmen are separated after the storm, and the destroyer Aribi, minesweeper Bramble and trawler Vismala are all off looking for them. Like the Germans, the escort also keeps radar off to avoid revealing their own position. Bringing up the rear of the force, Corvette Hyderabad sights Hipper Group's 2 destroyers, but misidentifies them as Soviet vessels. At 8:30 AM, Obdurate sights the same ships, bearing 210, and reports it to HMS Onslow. Sherbrooke orders Obdurate to split and investigate. After nearly an hour, Obdurate intercepts the unidentified ships and flashes a challenge with her signal lamp. At a range of 4.5 miles, the German destroyers reply with gunfire. Obdurate heels hard over to starboard, dodging the first salvo of shells. Enemy in sight. Destroyers, join me. Sherbrooke, aboard Onslow, tears back through the convoy, and HMS Orwell follows behind. HMS Escorts and the corvettes make smoke, shepherding the merchantmen away to the east. Escorts' white chemical smoke shrouds the force, but silhouettes herself. The gunnery team aboard Admiral Hipper slew her 8-inch main batteries onto the elderly destroyer and opened fire. The second salvo straddles her, and shrapnel tears through Escorts' hull, damaging electrics and causing flooding. The passageways are littered with injured men. Spotting the flash of Hipper's guns, Sherbrooke brings his destroyers around. The 3 German destroyers slip in astern of Admiral Hipper. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, HMS Onslow opens fire at 9:41 am with her 4.7-inch guns. A battery is blocked by ice, and the gun crew batter away at it with shell casings to clear the jam as freezing spray slices over the open turret. Unfazed, Hipper continues engaging Escorts. HMS Onslow leads the flotilla, now joined by HMS Obedient, hard to port through a full circle, mimicking a torpedo attack to scare off the German cruiser. The 3 destroyers keep closing, hoping to get as near as possible to Hipper before unleashing their fish for real. The feint works, and, fearing a torpedo attack, Cummins turns Hipper away. She continues to fire on Escorts until they're separated by a snow squall. At 9:49 am, with the cruiser concealed by weather, Sherbrooke brings his destroyers east to avoid being drawn too far away from the convoy. If Hipper attacks aggressively, there will be little Sherbrooke and his 3 destroyers can do to stop it. His only hope is Force R, 39 miles to the north and closing fast. Rear Admiral Burnett aboard HMS Sheffield has seen the gun flashes in the distance and has ordered his 2 cruisers to turn south, breaking into a 31-knot charge to join the fray. Sherbrooke just needs to keep the convoy alive until they can reach him. As the Admiral Hipper emerges periodically from the squall to fire odd broadsides at the destroyers, Sherbrooke makes the risky but wise decision to detach Obedient, then Obdurate, to reinforce the thinly protected convoy. He accepts the risk of leaving HMS Orwell and his own HMS Onslow behind to keep the heavy cruiser occupied. Cummins is impressed by the handling of the British destroyers. The convoy is fully screened by smoke from Escorts. He has no idea what Lutzow is doing, but hopes she's in position, lying in wait for the fleeing convoy. At 10:13 am, Hipper makes another attempt to break through the destroyers. Spotting Onslow, her forward turrets open up. The 122 kg shells cover the 6 miles in 13 seconds, landing astern of Onslow. The cruiser's secondary battery of 6 4.1-inch guns engages Orwell. The British destroyers blaze away with their 4 and 4.7-inch guns, though with little effect. Hipper's 4th salvo straddles Onslow. A shell explodes in her funnel and shrapnel kills the men in the radar office. On the open bridge, a fragment strikes Captain Sherbrooke in the face, smashing his cheekbone and his left eye. Still alive, he refuses medical treatment until his ship is out of danger. 2 more rounds strike her forecastle, scything down the forward gun crews. Sherbrooke orders the wounded HMS Onslow to starboard and makes smoke, her aft guns still firing as the destroyer disappears in her own smokescreen. At 10:22 am, another squall blinds Hipper. Sherbrooke turns his ship beam onto the wind to help fight the fire raging forward and amidships, and orders the forward magazines flooded, then gives command of the escort to Captain Kinloch of HMS Obedient. Only now does he allow himself to be taken below for medical attention, as Onslow retreats to the convoy. Meanwhile, Cummins changes course to northeast to try and hook around and reappear on the convoy's far side. Minesweeper HMS Bramble, separated during the storm, can only see the glow of gunfire on the horizon. She is hurrying back to help from the north when she runs into Admiral Hipper. The cruiser unleashes a full broadside. Bramble courageously returns fire with her single forward 4-inch gun, but is quickly reduced to a blazing wreck. Kummetz detaches destroyers Friedrich Eckold and Richard Beitzen to finish her off, and she sinks with all hands lost. Meanwhile, the convoy continues heading south, unwittingly being herded towards Lützow. Escorts is still in the fight, bringing up the rear, 12 merchants in the middle. Obedient and Obdurate are 2 miles to port making smoke, and Onslow and Orwell are coming south beyond them. Force R is still 15 miles to the north. Pocket battleship Lützow fires up her search radar and detects the convoy. HMS Obedient spots Lützow through the gloom to the southwest, so she, Obdurate and Orwell rush to shield the merchants. Poor weather between the pocket battleship and the convoy makes a good gunnery attack unlikely, so Captain Rudolf Stanger decides to slip back into the mist and cross around behind the convoy to strike from the northeast. The convoy commander, Captain Meluish, brings his merchantmen to the southeast to put more distance between him and Admiral Hipper still probing from the north. This manoeuvre inadvertently foils Lützow's flanking manoeuvre, and they also escape the Lützow and Hipper pincer attack in the process. By 11 AM, both Hipper and Lützow are searching separately to the east of the convoy. At 11:50 AM, Captain Kinloch, still commanding the Royal Navy close escort warships, orders the damaged Escorts to the front of the convoy with Onslow so the 2 damaged destroyers can support each other. However, in doing so, she emerges from the smoke and is spotted by Hipper stalking 10 miles northeast. Minutes later, shell fire is again raining down around Escorts. Despite evasive manoeuvring, the second salvo strikes home, killing her captain and the bridge crew and igniting severe fires amidships. The next salvo damages boilers, cutting her speed to just 12 knots. Despite the best efforts of her crew, the damage is fatal. Kinloch brings the fighting escort about to face Hipper again. Finished with Escorts, Admiral Hipper's gunners switch fire. Shell splinters from her first salvo knocks out Obedient's radio. Though not able to close with the destroyers due to the risk of torpedo attack, Vice Admiral Kummetz retains the initiative and can dictate the battle. The destroyers are running around screening the convoy but can't press the attack against either one of the German ships without leaving the merchants exposed to the other. The convoy is being stalked by 2 powerful warships and is in serious danger. However, unbeknownst to Kummetz, at 11:26 AM, Force R arrives. Light cruiser HMS Sheffield's radar detects Admiral Hipper 8 miles ahead. Distracted by the battle, Hipper is unaware of the danger bearing down on it. Rear Admiral Burnett brings the Town-class cruiser starboard, unmasking her full 12-gun broadside. Under radar control, her 6-inch guns thunder through the gloom. Kummetz is bewildered by shells crashing around him. Sheffield's second salvo punches a hole through the waterline, killing 1 man, causing flooding and wrecking the No. 3 boiler room, forcing 1 engine to be shut down and capping Hipper's speed. Colony-class cruiser HMS Jamaica joins the bombardment. An armour-piercing shell ignites a fire in Hipper's seaplane hangar. The next penetrates her starboard side. The German heavy cruiser attempts to return fire, but smoke from her battle damage blinds her gun directors, and her panicked shooting is wildly inaccurate. Hipper may have the bigger 8-inch guns, but the ships of Force R, with their greater number of lighter 6-inch batteries, outgun her through sheer rate of fire. In seconds, the tables have turned. Kummetz himself is trapped in a pincer between 3 British destroyers on one side and a pair of British cruisers on the other, with Lützow nowhere to be seen. Remembering the Führer's orders to exercise caution, at 11:37 AM, he orders all ships to break off the attack and run. Further north, destroyers Friedrich Eckold and Richard Beitzen are returning from finishing off HMS Bramble. They signal to Kummetz, "I can see a cruiser and a destroyer at 300. Is that you?" It's not. Sheffield's lookouts spot the destroyers 2 miles ahead, and her skipper immediately turns her hard to bring all guns to bear. Richard Beitzen tries to warn Eckold, but it's too late. Sheffield lets fly with everything: 2-pounder AA guns, 4-inch guns, and no less than 16 salvos from her 6-inch main batteries. In seconds, Eckold explodes. split in two as the torrent of gunfire reduces her to a mangled, burning wreck. Richard Beitson is engaged by Jamaica, but she escapes behind a sudden snow squall. To the south, Lutzel finally spots the convoy and fires her first salvo of the battle, straddling freighter Calobre. But almost immediately, Capitan Stanger obeys Kummitz's withdrawal order and ceases fire, turning away southwest, where the two capital ships will rejoin. Sheffield and Jamaica give chase, trading salvos with the retreating German ships through the mist until radar contact is lost at 2 p.m. Hitler claims on his New Year's Eve address that the Kriegsmarine has destroyed the entire convoy. When Vice Admiral Oskar Kummitz breaks radio silence to make his report the next day, the Führer is less than thrilled. The convoy has lost one destroyer, HMS Achates, and the minesweeper HMS Bramble, with destroyer HMS Onslow damaged. However, all of the merchant ships escape unscathed. In return, the Kriegsmarine has lost destroyer Friedrich Eckholt and her entire crew, and heavy cruiser Admiral Hipper is in need of considerable repairs. Hitler's entire rationale for Operation Rainbow was contradictory. It was a daring operation in concept, but his orders forced timidity in its execution. Naturally, Hitler views the issue differently. He condemns the Navy as a breeding ground for revolution, idly lying about and lacking any desire to get into action. He decides, "It is now my irrevocable decision to do away with these useless ships." On Hitler's orders, battleship Gneisenau is dismantled and further scrappings are narrowly avoided. The success of the defensive actions of a handful of British destroyers against his heavy cruiser and battleship until the Force R cruisers could arrive have shattered Hitler's faith in the German surface fleet for good. With his surface fleet now useless, the head of the Kriegsmarine, Fleet Admiral Erich Raeder, resigns and is replaced by U-boat commander Karl Dönitz, signalling a doctrinal shift for the Kriegsmarine. Convoy JW51B reaches the shelter of Murmansk on the 3rd of January 1943. British Home Fleet Commander Admiral John Tovey regards the battle as a victory. That an enemy force of at least one pocket battleship, one heavy cruiser and 6 destroyers, with all the advantage of surprise and concentration, should be held off for 4 hours by 5 destroyers and driven from the area by 2 6-inch cruisers without any loss to the convoy, is most credible and satisfactory. For his gallant command of the escort force, Captain Sherbrooke is awarded the Victoria Cross, the highest award for bravery in the presence of the enemy. Thanks again to Supremacy Call of War 1942 for sponsoring this video. Engage in epic battles and click the link in the description to get an exclusive starter pack containing new loot boxes which can drop the new unit, the Marines, with a value of $25 US. This offer is only valid for the next 30 days. Thanks again to our amazing patrons whose support enables us to make these videos. If you'd like to support us to keep making these videos, please join our Patreon at patreon.com/The Operations Room and get access to exclusive benefits such as early access to videos, ad and sponsor free. We would love to have you as part of our community and really appreciate your support.